Welcome back to the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast here on Monday, February 4th, 2019. It's the Monday after the Super Bowl, and what a game it was. We'll admit, not the best one, the most fun one to ever watch, but a surprising result nonetheless. So touching on the Patriots' 13-3 win over the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, you heard that right, 13-3. Give my reaction to that on today's episode. Before we jump into that, first, the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast is brought to you by Believe the Hype. This new sneaker selling company buys the latest hard-to-get pairs and sells them straight back to you. That way, you can rock the latest pair of Jordans or Yeezys, even if you miss out on their release day. Visit their Twitter and Instagram at Believe Hype Shop and check out their eBay store to see their current stock. Links to all of that down in the description. So, following this performance by the Patriots, and their defense specifically, it's bringing up the question of if they are the greatest dynasty in sports, and I'll touch on that. But first I want to just touch on the game a little bit because there's still a lot to unravel from this specific football game. And I think the biggest takeaway is just the fact that sometimes in sports, things don't change just as much as we like to think they do. That sometimes just the same old thing usually works. That consistency usually ends up on top. And what I mean by this is that in the NFL, over the past, I would say, 5 to 6 years, there seems to be this huge, shift towards the offensive side of the football. And that is true. That is a legitimate thing happening. That offenses are beginning to dominate between rule changes and other things like that. That's beginning to happen. But also involved in all of this, whether it's running quarterbacks, other, people like Chip Kelly, now someone like Sean McVay, the new masterminds of football who say they have it all figured out, who have this fresh new idea that's going to completely change the way we play the game. And at the end of the day, yes, the rule changes help the offense. Yes, new coaches definitely bring great insight. But the people who win championships are those who are consistent, are those who, week in and week out, are able to put it all together. Where no matter if it's a high-scoring game, a low-scoring game, they just do what they have to do in order to win that football game. And I think the Patriots proved that once again. I mean, we already knew that going into this football game. We already knew that the Patriots know how to win. But I'll admit, I was very surprised that the Pats could come out on top in a 13-3 game. I did not expect that whatsoever. And if I knew the scoreline was going to be 13-3, I would have expected the Rams to be the ones on top. I would have expected that Rams defense with that stellar defensive line, those talented secondary players. I would have expected them to have made the big play that stifled Tom Brady, that would have stopped this Patriots offense, would have stuffed Michelle at the line, and maybe taken an interception or a fumble back to the house. If I knew that was a scoreline, that's what I would have expected. But for the Patriots, and I think Bill Belichick especially, this was just completely not expected. And this has to go down as one of the greatest defensive game plans we've ever seen. Because while this Rams team is playing in an era where there are huge offensive numbers, I'll admit that, they're still one of the better offenses in those great offenses of this era. They are still looked at as one of the premier offensive units that we see in the NFL today. And the fact that they could be held to 3 points, and the way they did it too, because on this podcast I had Josh Brigadier on from WCVB TV up in Boston, and when we were talking about the game plan and what we were talking about what the Patriots do well and kind of do poorly, the one thing he mentioned to me, the Patriots a little lacking at some areas, is that defensive line. And the unique ways that Belichick, between the stunts, between the bringing a linebacker here, faking a blitz, then showing it, all the different things that Belichick did on that game plan on defense in order to get a pass rush on Goff. With a defensive line that, while it has its good players, when you compare it to a line like the one they're playing against, the Rams, certainly not much of a comparison there. The fact that he was able to get that much out of that defense, I think, is incredibly remarkable. Because while there are good players around that defense, it's not looked at as this supremely talented bunch of guys. The Rams, you go down the list of the Rams defense, and you just see all pros, Pro Bowlers, some of the best players of their position. Arguably the best player in the NFL in Aaron Donald in terms of how talented he is compared to the rest of the people at his position. And you look at the Patriots, and well, there are good players. I mean, obviously, look at the McCourty twins, people like that. There is no Aaron Donald, especially in the defensive line. They're good players. I mean, Van Noy made some plays last night, but certainly on the Rams, he would not be a star player name. So that's one thing I have to look at is the fact that Bill Belichick, excellent defensive game plan. And also, you can't forget somebody like Brian Flores, who's going to end up becoming the next coach of the Miami Dolphins, who helped out on that defensive game plan as well. So that's just the first take, and that's just the most obvious one, is just how incredibly magnificent that defensive game plan was, and the fact that you were able to hold the Rams to just 3 points. And now the other issue I want to talk a little bit about is Tom Brady after this game, because this is his 6th Super Bowl, and we know that at this point the numbers are just getting astronomical, ridiculous basically in terms of his success he's had on the field. And there is, for all the talk about him, being the GOAT, there's also the people who try to take away from that success. And basically what I have to say is, number one, this guy has won 6 Super Bowls. You cannot take that away from him. He is, in my opinion, the greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest football player of all time, just based off that sheer success. But I feel like this Super Bowl, in a way, the 6th one, it really comes down to the Patriots' defense on this one. And he made the plays to win this game. That Edelman and Brady combination on 3rd downs, even though it did not result in any points, I'm not that mad that Edelman got MVP. I did hear some people say that we should have went to a defensive player, and I understand that because they held the Rams to 3 points. But I'm not that mad that Edelman got it, because all of those 3rd downs, all of those times they just found Edelman open. I mean, that was what was able to keep the Rams offense off the field. And never, when you only have the ball for a couple minutes at a time, for a minute or two at a time, it's hard to get that rhythm just to then have the Patriots have the ball, just drive down the field, or at least take some time off the clock. Even though they're not able to score, just still have the ball. I mean, the Patriots dominated time of the possession, and that Edelman and Brady combo was awesome. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that even though the defense was the most spectacular part of this football game, even though Tom Brady did not throw a touchdown pass. He threw an interception, though, and I don't think he played that great of a game. I think a lot of his throws he definitely missed some throws that I was surprised by. That first interception, not only was that a bad read, but the ball came out wobbly. I noticed that on a couple throws. Usually you see Brady, it's a tight spiral and makes the correct read, and I just didn't see that a couple times. So I thought the Rams defense played exceptionally well against Brady. But I also don't think that just because the Patriots defense played well doesn't mean we have to take this away from Tom Brady. Because let's not forget that this was a top 5 offense this season. The stat that I think was at the top 4. Forget what stat on offense, but the top 4 offenses statistically were in the 2 championship games. So this has been an offense that has produced all year long, and in a way, how Brady could have a game where he did not perform his best, but he's able to make enough plays to win that game, because a 13-3 game as a QB, that basically means that whoever can just kind of put a drive together wins that football game. I mean, you just needed one touchdown drive to win that game if you're the Patriots. And I think Brady being able, in that situation against a defense full of players who, like I mentioned, all Pro Bowlers, definitely some future Hall of Famers in that group as well, and to be able to pull out that kind of win and show over the course of the season that whether it's a game where he, it was a more high-scoring game and he's able to win, or just a defensive battle like this one. In a way, I think it kind of almost adds to his legacy in a way, because we always know that Tom could win in some shootouts. We've seen him do it. We've seen him put up the points. We've seen him put up those astronomical numbers. I mean, look at last year. Last year, I think, is almost, in a way, almost the exact opposite of this year, where Tom Brady in that offense didn't punt once. You don't punt once. I think Tom Brady had close to 500 yards or over 500 yards, some crazy number like that, put up 33 points, and yet they still lose. A year where his defense let him down, I think, by giving up 41 points to Nick Foles and the Eagles. So I think it's only right that the next year, the Patriots' defense is the one that steps up. And I don't want to also think that there's this myth that other QBs win Super Bowls with terrible defenses, because that never happens. That never happens. I mean, the great thing about Tom Brady, in my opinion, and I say this with LeBron James as well, is the fact that, yes, they have the championships. Obviously, Brady a lot more now than LeBron does, but it's the consistency factor. It's that they don't miss games. LeBron just had his injury LeBron just had felt like his first one in forever, where he missed significant time. Brady had one season. They don't miss games, and it's not that they win it every year. It's that they're there every year. It's that the Patriots are there for the AFC Championship game year after year after year after year. It's that LeBron's in the finals year after year after year. Because in my mind, that is a level of greatness that's really tough to contend with. Because over the course of an NFL, NBA, but especially in NFL where it's a single elimination during the playoffs, it's so easy for a fumble to bounce the wrong way, one errant throw to get away from you, all these close scoring games. It's so easy to not make it back to the AFC Championship game. And yet the Patriots do it year after year after year. And the thing about Tom Brady is that the reason he is so great is that no matter what kind of team you have, no matter what kind of team you put around him, you will be successful. There have been years where he's not had a stellar offensive line, where he's really had no wide receivers. I mean, I think Julian Edelman played himself away into the Hall of Fame, especially after that Super Bowl MVP. But let's not pretend like Julian Edelman is some generational wide receiver. Besides Randy Moss, I mean, Brady's best targets recently have been kind of Wes Welker. I mean, Gronk is an amazing tight end, but look how often he's injured. So you give Tom Brady a team where maybe you don't even have all the pieces. Maybe you don't even have a complete running game or a complete offensive line or great wideouts or even that good of a defense, and he'll still get you to the AFC Championship game. He might not win you the Super Bowl that year, because I don't know any quarterback that wins you a Super Bowl when you don't have anything. I mean, even somebody as talented as Aaron Rodgers is, I mean, the biggest thing about him is that Green Bay has not provided a defense or a lot of other things or an offensive line recently for him, and obviously he struggles. So the greatness about Tom Brady is not the fact that he is able to overcome anybody. Nothing is better than him. Any game, no matter what defense it is, he's able to put up huge numbers, and he's able to win. Each time they win a game, it's because of him. It's not it. The greatness of Tom Brady is that he puts his team in the position to win a Super Bowl every single year. Every single year, the Patriots are right there at the end. And Tom Brady does everything he can, whether it's last year putting up a great game in the Super Bowl, but his defense didn't come through. Nick Foles had an amazing football game. That Eagles offense had an amazing game. And at a certain point, you're Tom Brady, and you never punt. How are you supposed to beat that? Some years it's just out of your control. And I think this year what it showed is that year after year, Tom Brady puts his team in a position to win. He gives his team a chance to win a Super Bowl. And this year, his defense stepped up when they needed to, and they're able to get it done. The dude's, 41, 42 years old? And he's still winning Super Bowls. He's still one of the greatest QBs in the league. I mean, he's the greatest of all time at this point, but he's still excelling at a high point in the league. He's still able to go to the AFC Championship game every year, go to the Super Bowl most years, and then still win some. So, my view of Tom Brady is that his greatness is unquestionable. You can't deny it at this point. Yes, the defense won that football game, but don't forget who played well all season long to get him there. Don't forget who's played well year after year to get the team to that point. Any Super Bowl that any quarterback has ever won, they had a good defense backing them up. The years that Ben Roethlisberger won a Super Bowl, those were the years the Steelers' defense was really, really good, with some Hall of Famers there. The year that Drew Brees was able to pull it off and win one. Don't forget Tracy Porter's interception in the Super Bowl. That was huge. When Peyton won one, his defense stepped up. He had a good defense that year. Or both years, I guess. Almost like the commercial, I forgot that he had two. One in Indianapolis and one in Denver. Russell Wilson, when he got well, his defense. It's any QB really that's ever won a Super Bowl, you have to have that complete team. No, there is the myth that a QB can single-handedly win a Super Bowl. I don't understand that. You need to have a complete team. What Tom Brady's showing, though, is just how far a QB position can take a team. A QB as great as Tom Brady can take a team to the AFC Championship game year after year after year after year. I mean, I didn't know that was possible. Look throughout NFL history. That's usually every single time a great QB ever has had tremendous success in the postseason, there's always the defense to back him up. The fact that Tom Brady can go some years where he has a subpar defense and still get to the AFC Championship game, that's amazing, and that's the true showing of greatness. And I'm happy that Tom Brady got his 6 because I think that at this point, it's a level of greatness that we're just not accustomed to seeing. And to that question of, is this the greatest dynasty in sports? As of right now, I think it is. I would have to say so. The only reason that I say it's greater than a dynasty, let's say like somebody like UConn's women's basketball, or even something like Alabama football, is from the simple fact in the NFL that you can't really recruit the best players because college is this type of sport where it rewards you for being well. The better you are, the more the system rewards you because now you're recruiting. You win a college football championship. Now you get to go into the houses of the top recruits next year and say, hey, we're champions. Come play for us. Whereas in the NFL, it's, Patriots, you make it to the AFC Championship game year after year. You win a Super Bowl. You're drafting with the last pick in the first round. You're drafting with one of the worst first-round picks year after year after year, and they're still able to put it all together. And if you look at something like the NBA with the Warriors, or even LeBron to a lesser extent, with how he was able to do it with the Heat and the Cavs, just his Eastern Conference dynasty, I guess I would say, for all those years in a row that he went to the finals out of the Eastern Conference. The reason I would say the Patriots more so is because the way that when you have 5 players on a court, it's easier for one player to affect a game, especially when you have a great player like LeBron James, or if you're the Warriors, have all those great players. And just from the simple fact that the Patriots have been doing this for close to 2 decades now, that it's really gone on for a lot longer than some people have realized, that this is going on for, people are as old as this dynasty is going on right now. This is just a level of excellence, level of greatness that has just really been unmatched. So I think you have to give this the title of the greatest dynasty in sports. And the odds came in for next year that having the Chiefs favored to win a Super Bowl I'm sorry, I'm still picking the Patriots. It's just, at this point, I will not bet against the Patriots for the rest until Tom Brady and Bill Belichick retire. Until one of them is gone, maybe even both of them, honestly. I don't see how you can pick against the Patriots. They've just reached a level of greatness that we didn't even know was possible. With that, that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to catch this Monday, Wednesday, Friday on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, all those great places where you like to listen to podcasts. Also in the same podcast feed are the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill and Jackson Neill Music Podcast. I released the Jackson Neill Music Podcast on Sundays. Talked about the Super Bowl halftime yesterday. Go check that one out. And Anything Goes is where I interview musicians. Have a lot of cool ones in the works, so stay tuned for those. Also, reminder, the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast is brought to you by Believe the Hype. This new sneaker selling company buys the latest hard-to-get pairs and sells them straight back to you. That way, you can rock the latest pair of Jordans or Yeezys, even if you miss out on their release day. Visit their Twitter and Instagram at Believe Hype Shop and check out their eBay store to see their current stock. Links to all of that down in the description. Also down in the description is the link to my Twitter and Instagram at JacksonNeill20. There you can find the links to all of my podcasts, a little bonus content for those as well, my thoughts on things, so go make sure to follow those on Twitter and Instagram as well. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you all on Wednesday.